Rep A is absent. Casby Will Jones and Casby Katie Harms. Katie Harms. Okay, CHSAA Diana Chrisman. CHSAA Chris Fielder. CHSAA Wendy Burhansel. Thank you. Centennial Larry Bull. Centennial Melinda Brown. Centennial Wes Mock. City League Casey Powell. City League Leon Garcia. City League Kevin Benji. City League Mike Perez. Colorado Ryan Weidman. Colorado Springs Metro North Amanda Wormers. Colorado Springs Metro Chris Knoll. Colorado Springs Metro John Schub. Colorado Springs Metro Andy Parks. Colorado Springs Metro South Matt Wilson. Continental Tom Brisky. Continental Jill Schrader. Continental Josh Stevenson. Fishers Peak Lon Gomer. Foothills Sean DePaula. Foothills Tara Hatfield. Frontier Amy Peters. Frontier Thomas McCarty. Granite Peaks Chad Eisentrager. Granite Peaks Marty Tonjes. Granite Peaks Nick Kosovic. High Plains Manuel Gonzalez. Intermountain Greg Jones. Jeffco Patrick Simpson. Jeffco Gordon Volk. Jeffco Mike Hughes. Longs Peak Ryan Hilbig. Lower Platte Andy Schoen. Lower Platte Presley Popacek. Metro John Hill. Metro Dan Seidman. Mile High Colleen Ford. Mile High Jeff Schusler. North Central Jeff Durbin. NCAA JJ Behrens. NCAA Dave Walk. NCAA Eric Johnson. Patriot Ryan Wehrman. Patriot Travis Steiner. Pikes Peak Nick Baker. Rocky Mountain Ryan Bishop. Rocky Mountain David Smith. Rocky Mountain Jason Humphrey. San Juan Chris Murray. Santa Fe Mark Lowther. South Central Dusty Lotrick. Southern Peaks Melanie Shalcroft. Southern Peaks Corey Rivas. Southwestern Greg Hawkins. Tri-Peaks Chris Medina. Tri-Peaks Marco Hahn. Union Pacific Jake Trahern. West Central Rick Bowman. Western Slope Clark Kindler. Western Slope Jeremy McCormick. Western Slope Melissa Rigsby. Western Slope Kyle Boystron. And YWKC Connor Fiskus. Okay, great. And at this time, I would like to invite you all to stand. And today we are honored to have senior Aaron Davis from Green Mountain High School singing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and mark its red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right, Aaron, thank you very much. How about another round of applause for Aaron Davis? That was fantastic. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our January 2025 meeting of the CHSAA Legislative Council. My name is Ryan West. I am the athletic director at Regis Jesuit High School, and I'm also honored to serve as the president of the board of directors for CHSAA. Before we get started, there's a few people I want to introduce and acknowledge. First of all of you that are taking this time out of your day to be here, to be part of this valuable process that we go through twice a year now. This is the second year that we've had a January meeting in addition to our April meeting, and just such positive feedback after going through it last year. It's really helped with process and making little tweaks for things that maybe don't work the first time, but we find a better solution when we come April time. And so thank you guys for taking time to be here today. I like to I think I referred to this event last year as the world's largest collection of embroidered polos. I'd like to amend that this year. I think it's the world's largest collection of embroidered quarter zips, or maybe vests in Larry Hughes's honor. But anyway, welcome. Thank you all for being here today. Some introductions before we get started. I'd like to acknowledge all of the CHSAA board members that are sitting alongside on the side of the room. Would you please stand and be recognized at this time? I'd like to recognize Derek Cheney and Brad Whitticus from Douglas County School District for getting us this fantastic facility. It's just so nice to have a room like this that we can do it a much more responsible, much more fiscally responsible way to our membership than having to rent a huge ballroom. And Brad and Derek and all the Douglas County folks that make this room available for us for so many events, thank you very much. Derek and Brad, could you stand to be recognized, please? I'd like to recognize the CHSAA staff that works so hard every day and does all the little behind-the-scenes things to make everything work. All of our, all the organization, all the clerical work, fielding all the phone calls, the emails, the organization that goes into our championship events, as well as the day-to-day operations. All of our assistant commissioners and all of their assistants. Would you please stand and be recognized at this time? Recognize up here at the table Miss Marty Benham from Cherry Creek High School. She's our parliamentarian. She'll keep us in order and make sure that if we're making any mistakes that she corrects us. She's going to come up here and talk to you guys in a few minutes. But Marty, thank you again for being here today. CHSAA Associate Commissioner Bethany Brookins, and thank you for all of your leadership and everything that you do. Appreciate you. Thanks. And of course, our Commissioner, Mike Kruger, who you'll hear from here shortly. Mike, thank you for everything you do to lead the organization. Last but not least, I would be completely remiss if I did not recognize Kathy Lenz. She is the brains behind the whole operation. She does all the organizing and getting emails out to all of you guys, getting all of your voter information out, making sure that everybody has the correct logins, gets the Wi-Fi set up, gets the room organized, gets all the name tags out, gets all your power supplies there on your tables, and really does coordinate everything. Kathy, we could not do this without you. Thank you for everything that you do, Kathy Lenz. So just a couple opening remarks before we get going. I know you guys didn't come here to talk to me today, but I just want to go back and reflect on a few things from the fall. Some new things that happened the fall that we should be really proud of. We completed our first sanctioned season of girls flag football. Record numbers of kids. That's by far the fastest growing sport that we have in CHSAA right now. Tons of schools participating in the first sanctioned year, and we have numerous schools ready to come back on board again next year. It's so popular, we're almost doubling the size of it next year, not even waiting for the next 2-year cycle. First year with having our 3A football championship up at Canvas Stadium along with the 4A and 5A, and it made for a really tremendous day. Beautiful weather that day, 3 great football games, and truly was a celebration, a good culmination of the football season. We had record attendance this fall at the state soccer championships, state volleyball championships, and so those are some things to celebrate as well. And instead of going back and reflecting on every sport and everything that happened and all those things, I thought I'd do something a little more energetic this morning and go back and talk about Election Day. On election day, they showed up in big numbers. They were proud. They showed up. They were very supportive, very supportive. I'll shut up on that. That wasn't good. But anyway, I want to go back to election day, and specifically that night. And I don't want to talk anything about politics, politicians, anything that happened that day. I want to talk and start on election night, something that happened 5 miles away from here. 5 miles away from here on our campus, we were fortunate enough to be hosting Erie High School in state round of 16 boys soccer game. We were supposed to start the game at about 7 o'clock, right when the polls were closing on election night, and we moved it up to 4:30 because this big snowstorm was coming in. And man, right when the game was getting ready to start, it already started. The little grappled, the little frozen pellets of rain and snow were started to come down, and the boys are out there trying to play. It's 30 degrees outside, and the wind's howling, and it actually kind of let up a little bit as we got into the game. But then as we got into the second half, the snowflakes started getting bigger, got a little colder, started accumulating on the field. Probably had a good half-inch to inch on the field by the time we got done, and we were lucky to get that game in. Some people weren't that fortunate that night to be able to get their games finished and had to finish them the next night. I don't think what we didn't know that night is that snow was the start of a monumental November snow event that we hadn't seen in a couple of decades here. We got amounts of snow over the next days that week, Wednesday, Thursday into Friday, 12, 18, in some places up to nearly 2 feet of snow, especially here in the Denver metro area. And the thing with the timing is just unusual to get that kind of snowstorm in November, but it also happened to be, like I said, the round of 16 playoffs for boys soccer. 4A and 5A teams were getting ready to compete in the first round of state playoffs for football. State gymnastics was going on that week. State volleyball regionals were going to happen that weekend. We were trying to figure out a place and a time to finish off the field hockey season that we had to move the state championship time 3 or 4 different times to get the game in. So the reason that I'm talking about this snowstorm and the reason I'm talking about this event is I think it's a great illustration of everything that makes sport great. And it's a great illustration of everybody in this room. Because through the rest of that week, everybody had to come together. Athletic directors, coaches, players, administrators, parents, CHSAA staff, everybody had to come together for the common good to make sure that these events happened, to make sure that these events took place, to make sure that in some cases at the end of a season, those seniors didn't miss out on their final game, that they got to participate in their final game regardless of circumstance. Now we faced some obstacles. It kept snowing and snowing and snowing and snowing. And I can speak personally from my school, being a single school that's not a part of a school district, and we don't have a bunch of maintenance-type resources to help keep our field clear of snow and things like that, but it was a challenge. It was a challenge to get that field ready to play. We were scheduled to play on a Friday night, and on Friday morning, we had 18 inches of snow on our field. There was no way that game was going to happen. And that was the same case for everybody, especially in the metro. I think one game got played that day, and it was way up north where they didn't get as much snow. So I think everybody had to pool together their resources. I know district stadiums were getting shoveled out, hiring laborers, having parents come in, things like that. I know at our school we had to come together, and we were almost at the point on a Saturday morning where we had to make a tough decision. Were we going to try and play that game at our own stadium that our coaches and our players and our parents were fighting very hard for? They wanted that very last game that they had earned, that home playoff game, to be on their home field. Or were we going to do a little bit of an easier solution and move it to a district stadium that had already been cleared out, that was ready to go, that we could double up on resources with another district to make the game happen? And I just sat there on that Saturday morning as we were trying to make that decision and prayed. In this room at Regis we called Tradition Hall, and said a prayer. And as soon as I got done with the prayer, my phone rang. And I'm like, wow, is Jesus calling me? Is Jesus answering my prayer? And I looked down at my phone. No, it was Larry Bull. So close. It was close. It wasn't Jesus, but it was Larry Bull. Very close. But he called me up. He said, hey, I know you guys want to play that game at home. I know we want to make sure that happens. And it was one of the Cherry Creek District schools that we were playing against. We were playing against Eagle Crest that week. And I said, yeah, I don't know how we're going to get this done. And Larry said, I got a guy. And going forward from there, we were able to work together, our school, their district, their maintenance people, our parents came out with shovels, our coaches and kids came out with shovels, and we were able to get the field cleared, and we were able to make it work. And that's just one instance of what happened that day. I know similar events happened to get the fields cleared in Douglas County and in Littleton and in Denver and in Aurora and in Jeffco, and it wasn't just football. We had to get the boys' soccer games in, and it was unprecedented that we moved so many games and played on a Sunday that week. You know, playing on a Sunday, we had 4 5A quarterfinal soccer games at All City Stadium in Denver, and it was a beautiful day, and we got them all done. So I guess the point of that, and the reason I wanted to bring that up today is it really lifts up what makes us great. It really brings out the best in all of us when we can all work together for the common good. Games were played on that Sunday, but they were played, and we should all be proud of everything that we did. The way that we were able to come together, the way that we went out of our way to help each other, just so the kids could play their game. So to every one of you, thank you. Thank you to any and all of you that played a part in that weekend, and a weekend that we will soon not forget. So thank you. At this time, I'd like to bring to the stage Marty Benham. She's going to come up and give us the lay of the law and the rules of the land today. Marty.
Good morning. Thank you for having me back. I'm excited for all of the work that we'll do today. A few reminders from our rules of order. A league may not second its own motion. No member shall speak more than once to the same question without leave of the Legislative Council unless he or she is the mover, proposer, or introducer of the matter pending, in which case he or she shall be permitted to speak and reply. Only members of the Legislative Council, Board of Director, or CHSAA staff can speak to an issue unless the speaker is recognized by one of the former and approved by the President. And an amendment of a committee report presented for reconsideration, which was submitted 45 days prior to the Legislative Council, requires a majority vote for favorable approval. And then a committee report that has been open for reconsideration, items submitted for reconsideration that have not been submitted 45 days prior to the Legislative Council require a 2/3 favorable vote for approval. I'm very excited to work with all of you today and hope to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for all of your hard work.
All right, so I forgot item number 1 on the agenda already. That's not a good sign. But we still have 4 people that haven't logged into the voter information system. So maybe you're a late arriver or whatever. Check your email. There's information, should be right at the top, an email from Kathy. Make sure that we're logged into the system. We're still missing 4 people. But before we get started, we do need to approve the minutes of our last Legislative Council meeting from back in April. Everybody should have got those in advance and had a chance to review those. Do we have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes from the April board meeting? And thank you for just kind of protocol today as we go through the system. If you want to make a motion or make a second, if you could hold up your name card, and then when you're recognized, say your name and the league that you're from, just so we can get that accurately for the minutes, and we'll go forward with that. So, all right, motion by Josh from Colorado Springs Metro. Do we have a second? Greg from Intermountain League. Any discussion on the minutes from last April? So before we take that to a vote, let's do a test vote here on whether or not does pineapple belong on a pizza. Go ahead and log into your system. That should be the question up before you. Let's make sure that we can get everybody's votes in there. Ryan, is there anything else you wanted to tell them? Okay. Okay. Minute 5 for pizza. Can everybody go ahead and answer this question just so that we can make sure that everybody's devices are working? How many people? We should be at 70, so we're missing 3 votes. Is anybody having technical problems? Okay. Apparently pineapple does belong on pizza. So let's go back to, you ready for the vote so let's go back to the vote, which has already been motioned and seconded to approve the minutes from last April's Legislative Council meeting. Go ahead and vote. Still missing 5. If you're having technical difficulties, raise your hand so we can. The two that were having problems are right there. All right, we're good to go? Very good. Okay, so everybody's feeling comfortable with the voting system. That's what we'll be using later today. We'll get to that shortly, but first we have some introductory remarks, and I would like to start by introducing our Commissioner, Mike Kruger, with his Commissioner's update. Mike?
Hold your applause. Thank you. I don't know if those in the back didn't catch it, but before we started this morning, the floor split a little bit. My chair fell through and I took a tumble. That would have laid up a lesser athlete, so I just want to establish that right off the top. So Ryan stole a lot of my thunder to get started here with thank yous, but I still want to recognize a few folks. First, I want to thank Douglas County School District and Brad and Derek and the team, but more importantly, Janelle and the team here at Legacy Campus. They are phenomenal to work with, and we're so blessed to be here. So I just want to thank you again for hosting us. It means a lot to us, and you've been great partners for us the last number of years. So I also want to recognize the Board of Directors. Thank you for your leadership, for your guidance, for being great colleagues, but really having passionate hearts about the direction of our membership. The work that you do is incredibly valuable, and it's appreciated, and it's really an honor to serve alongside you, so thank you. Likewise, and I know Ryan did, but I also want to recognize the CHSAA staff. It's truly an honor to get to come to work every day and work alongside passionate servant leaders like this group. And we're a pretty tight family, and we take great pride in that. But you will not find a harder working group that cares so passionately about our membership. Not just what we do, but why we do it. And so I want to thank our staff and our staff family for everything that you do. Later today, I'm not going to touch on this now because I don't want to in any way, shape, or form step on the excitement of later today, but we have a really special announcement at the end of Legislative Council today. We've been working on hopefully as close to the vest as we can, but we shared the information with our Board of Directors yesterday. But we're very excited. At the end of Legislative Council today, we will have a press conference and a media release that's already gone out officially this morning, but we're very excited for our schools, for our membership. So stay tuned for that. Just a little teaser on that for you. So as we get started this morning, I just want to reiterate the importance of why we're here. We truly are, we say it a lot of times in our office, but we're a membership-driven organization. The biggest pieces of our membership are going to be evidenced today. Our Board of Directors is a very important foundational leg in the fact that we're membership-driven. They set policy, they guide us, they set vision and help establish a voice for you as member schools. Our committee structure is another foundational leg of us being a membership-driven organization. the voices from the committees really drive the strategy and how our sports and activities and administrative committees, how we operate as an organization. The committee reports that you hear today and that you will be voting on to approve or to change or to move forward with, that is an example of the voice of the membership being exhibited and driving the direction of our membership. It's so important to recognize that. And then the last, and I think the most influential and important leg of this, is you as the Legislative Council. You truly set the policy. You truly establish our bylaws and our Constitution and how we operate as an organization. There is a very strong misconception, and as much as I wish we had the power in the office some days and wish I had a magic wand, we don't set policy in the CHSAA office. We enforce and apply the policy that you as a membership establish. That's very important, and that's a very important operational principle of our organization. So I want you to embrace the important role that you play today as voting members. I know you take that seriously, but understand the broad perspective that it requires, because you're not only acting on behalf of what's best for you, your individual school, or even your individual community or the districts that you represent. You are truly making decisions that will impact every student athlete, every coach, every member school that belongs to the Colorado High School Activities Association. That's a very powerful responsibility. So your broad perspective on that and what is best for the membership always must be at the forefront of what we do here today. I wanted to really just quickly give you a quick update on the state of CHSAA. We're in a good position. We're doing really well, but I wanted to remind you of a couple of our strategic priorities. Those remain strong. They remain clear guideposts for us as a staff, and just wanted to hit on a couple of those to remind you that our efforts to communicate and connect, not just from the staff, myself, to you as member schools, but with each other. Communication and connection very much remain a vital focus of what we do and want to do, and to make sure that we're all operating on the same page. Even at times if we disagree on things or we don't know, at least we feel informed. We know what's coming. We know our voice is at the table. Those are important aspects of how we operate. Our efforts to lean into and grow the strength of our CHSAA member school family and staff through inclusion, diversity, and equity efforts remains a powerful reminder of the fact that we excel as an organization when we stand and work together. We respect our individual strengths and differences while we can still join together and unite around our shared purpose. That's really important. We continue those efforts. We will continue to move forward, understanding that that inclusion, that diversity is what gives our organization strength. We remain squarely focused on supporting the crucial work of athletic and activities directors in our member schools. This is very important to us. We are doing that currently through things like our new AD mentorship program, which is now in its 7th month. AD Connects, that Kata and Jen run from our office. Coffee with the Commish that we do virtually once a month. Those are all efforts to make sure that our athletic and activities directors feel the support. You're our primary stakeholder, and we want to make sure that if we do anything right, that we're making sure that we are committed to making sure that you have the support, the resources, the communication to be successful in your job, because you are the glue. You make it come to life in our member schools. So that remains very much a strong focus for us. With that, we also continue to have a number of task force that have been working over the course of this year, one of them going into over 19 months of work now. I wanted to just quickly update you on those, give you an up because they're so foundational, but also because a lot of discussion needs to take place over the next couple of months, especially relative to classification and league organizing. I did want to give you one quick update on our transfer options task force. That group has been working since August, discussing concepts around our transfer waiver system, evaluating it, diving into it, looking at it from all angles, particularly and specifically looking at the concept of one free transfer. And we heard from other state associations that have adopted policies like that. We've heard from their executive directors what the pros, what the cons are of that concept. So just to update you on that, that group has done some incredible work discussing and diving into those concepts. And I would tell you that where I think the committee is right now, or the task force is right now, is kind of looking at the fact that we actually have a one free transfer system for the most part. If you make a move to a new school district and you can bona fide and you can support documentation that makes that a bona fide move of your family, and it does necessitate a change in your school, then you have a full eligibility to make that move. If you have a broken home situation, one time in your high school career, you can move from one parent to the other with the proper documentation, and you can have full varsity eligibility. A change in your legal guardianship provides you with a free varsity eligibility transfer. We have that system in place. What the task force has recognized is where challenges come for our organization and for you as athletic administrators is a lot of times around the subjective nature of a hardship, which is our bylaws define as a severe non-athletic burden, but what it really is saying is if it doesn't fit one of these other categories and you still think there's a viable reason that this athlete or this student participant had to transfer, then that would have to fall under the classification of a hardship. With that being said, what the task force is currently working on is looking at, can we put additional guardrails around hardship? Can we do that and provide the support to athletic directors to know what's expected, and how do we as a group, including myself, consistently apply the bylaw standards that we've established as a membership? From that, I would say the last two things on that are this, that the task force did a really good job of looking at concepts like one free transfer and determining what is that problem, what is that question that is being answered by coming up with that foundational change in the way that we do things. And what the task force has come back with is that may not completely answer the concerns we have. It may also bring up additional concerns and challenges that we cannot anticipate. So we'll continue to study other states. We'll continue to study the litigation that they're in around that topic and learn from it. Lastly, I'm working on a resource guide for athletic administrators and activities directors that will clearly outline the processes and procedures, checklists, whether in bylaws establishes waivers and what they mean, and step by step user's guide to how to process transfer waivers. This won't only be beneficial to veteran ADs have been doing this, but especially for the new athletic directors who are just learning and trying to wrap their minds around how to do this process. It's one of the primary things we do. So expect that coming forward. You will also see some bylaw language in April that will help tighten up our bylaws around waivers. It will identify waivers or types of waivers that currently aren't outlined clearly in our bylaws. So I appreciate the work of that task force and wanted to let you know that today. So, and then lastly, I wanted to touch on the clock task force. As you know, that group started over a year ago, June of 2023. We've been working for quite some time, actually June of 24. We've been working for quite a long time on this, and last year, to the credit of this group, we were able to change the timelines that we're operating from relative to program placement. Big important steps there. I don't know if you realize, but had we not done that, you would have already received your program placements. We'd be voting on them at this committee today, or this Legislative Council today, for a cycle that would not even start until August of 26. So those timelines have been shortened. We will be gathering enrollment information over the next couple of months for 23, 24, 25, now using an average of your enrollments to be much more reflective of the size of your schools. To give you the Cliff Notes version of this, and I know we shared some of this at outreaches, but basically we've got that first part established. What the task force has been working on over the last few months is to look at specifically at the competitive equity components. We've been sharing that information out almost monthly in different venues, different avenues, from the board, coffee with the commish. We've been talking at outreaches, but we're at a very critical intersection right now of the direction we want to move as an organization relative to competitive equity. I think you would all agree that the system that we currently were using with the subjective nature of bylaw 1500.21 and how we look at those criteria to determine whether or not we should be moving up, down, sideways, that needed to be addressed, and that needed to be more objective, not just to help the staff and the board and the clock, but to help you as a school membership understand what we're doing. So what you will see coming before you before April, to be voted on in April, we need to get the next pieces of this done, and we need to do it by April because placements will start next fall. That we'll actually start them over the spring and summer this year. They will get started because we will have enrollment information. And it's important to note that we have to get it done in April, or we will be waiting to do something about this until August of 28. That's 4 years from now. So we do need to act. We need to talk. We need to make sure we're in the right direction. I believe this will be cyclical. We will need to make changes. We will need to see how unanticipated challenges come up. But what you will see is 3 different proposals that we're currently working on that will come before you. The first one will be relative to all of the ways that you can move within the placement system. If you are moving down, for instance, when your program is placed, and you want to move down and you do not meet an objective criteria for being placed down or having the option to be placed down, the first piece will be that if you choose to play down, you don't meet the objective criteria, you are certainly welcome to do that as a member school program, but you would not be eligible for postseason competition at that point. If you do meet the criteria for having the option of being placed down. And that criteria will be, the numbers we're working with right now is somewhere with a winning percentage between 12 and 15% against programs in your current classification. So if you're competing in 4A, you will be measured, your winning percentage will be measured against other 4A programs. If you're in a mixed class league, mixed classification program, it won't affect. We're gonna look at what your winning percentage is against schools in your classification and make that determination. If you meet that criteria point, you would be eligible then to be placed down if you so choose. You would be down there for that next cycle. If you experience success to the point where you qualify for the postseason, which our data shows is not very common at all. It has happened in the past, but it is certainly not the norm. It is certainly not common. But programs that are struggling to that extent that get placed down are not getting to the postseason in the classification below. But if you should, that would immediately indicate that you come back up to the classification the next cycle. So those are going to be the things that you look at relative to playing down and being placed down. That will be a separate proposal. The next proposal that'll come before you is relative to being placed up or moving up. Nobody has a problem. If you want to choose to play up on your own, great, more power to you. We will we'll put you right up there. All we need to know is that's what your desire is for your program. If you are a program, because of the competitive nature of this system, and because we have a system for allowing our schools to be placed down if they can't succeed, the task force and the clock and the board have also addressed the fact that if you are dominant in a classification, and that dominance has to be shown through postseason success. That is one of the things that we talked about. Playing down and placed down is about regular season. Playing up and being placed up is about postseason success. And what we've determined there is that bar needs to be very high. The reality of the situation is our membership has not been in that paradigm for decades, if ever. In the last 20 years, we've moved one program up for the domination of a classification against what I would say is against their wishes. One time in 20 years. And that's what we could find. Going back farther, we don't think we would find any. It's not the common thinking or perception of our membership to be placed up. Those that want to choose that. With that being said, we understand that that means we must set that bar very, very high. We must show that there is domination. We must show that for competitive equity that maybe that program could compete at a classification higher. So that measurement tool will be something along the lines of if you've won 3 state championships in the last 4 years, and in the most recent year, you at least were involved in a semifinal in that sport, that's a pretty clear sign that you're showing domination in that sport or that activity. So you would have be placed up at that time. So that's going to be the placed up options. We want to talk about that. That one has garnered a lot of discussion. We need those discussions to take place prior to April, so we know. But that will be a separate proposal. We want to have you vote on these separately because they are so important to making sure we address these, and we don't want one to derail the other. So if we need to come back and we need to continue to talk about this relative to the placed up concept, the task force, the clock certainly can continue, and we will continue to look, but we think that creates equity in the system. And then lastly, and maybe the one that needs the most discussion, is around enrollment. Enrollment is the primary foundation for how we classify our programs. It was for 70 years the only criteria that we used as an organization. From 1921 through the early 90s, all we did was use enrollment, and you got placed here. We placed you as a school. We didn't even place individual programs. That has changed over the years and what we've looked at, but the one constant that hasn't changed is the importance of enrollment. The enrollment is the best way to measure and classify, and as you look at all other state associations across the country, it is also the primary driver. It's the best way to say, when we say competitive equity, what we're saying is we want to compete against a school or a program like us. So the best way to determine that from the outset is to say, I have 500 kids, you have 500 kids, let's match up. Now, it's very true that there may be differences from my 500 to your 500, and I may not be experiencing success for a number of different reasons. That's why we vote on the other two proposals to take care of that. But the enrollment from the foundational level has nothing to do with success in movement. It has to do with the equitable comparison of how we compete. So the task force, the board, our clock committee are going to be considering, and you will see verbiage around how we determine that enrollment figure. We did it as a membership to look at that average of enrollment to start with, but as it continues discussion, as we look at it, we also recognize that there are some inequities from the foundational level with how enrollment is calculated. And if you, for instance, are a member school that does not have attendance boundaries, you're a non-boundary school, you can pull from anywhere. If you have the ability to control your enrollment caps or control how many students attend your school, if you have the ability to deny admission to a student, that could create an inequity from the foundational level that cannot be measured across the membership. So there are things being considered that we want to talk about with the membership as we approach April, of things like, should there be multipliers that are calculated into the enrollment for those non-boundary schools and those schools that do have control over their enrollment? Should that be a consideration when we go into this? These are important discussions that we need to have over the next 3 months, 2 months, before we get to April. And we'd like to make sure that you're having those discussions. So that is what's coming before you. That's where we're at right now with those two task forces. I know that's a lot of information, but we need to be talking about it. We are at a crossroads with where we are. We knew it would be approaching. We've been bantering about this for a couple of years. We knew this was coming, but we feel like these are some solutions that may get us pointed in the right direction. We may approve those, we may not when we get to April, but at least it will continue to give us direction, and we're working on it. With that said, I just wanted to remind you that there will be deadlines coming up for Legislative Council in April. Those will take place in March. Kathy will be sending out information to you. Please don't miss those deadlines. Some of the things that you'll be voting on today, the reason that it only requires a majority vote is because you were able to turn those amendments in prior to 45 days prior to the actual meeting. That's part of our bylaws, so pay attention to those deadlines. And lastly, I just wanted again to remind you, I appreciate your broad perspective. Thank you for the work that you do. It's so important. The actions and votes that you take today are truly representative of our membership and will impact every kid, every school, every student participant, every coach, every community in Colorado. Thank you, and good luck on your deliberations today.
Next up, our legal did Alex disappear? Is Alex? Oh, there's Alex. Our legal update, Alex Halpern.
I've gotten shorter over the years, if that's possible, and so I know I can be hard to see. It's been quite a while since we've spoken. We have not, I'm happy to say, it's been years since we've actually had courtroom litigation over, it's always over eligibility, or virtually always, and I'm not 100% sure why that is, probably because all the lawyers in the state are afraid of me, but there may be other reasons. This summer, we undertook the board and staff undertook a editorial process within the bylaws, not to change any of the bylaws, but especially in regard to the appeals process, to try to get everything consolidated so you didn't have to look at 3 or 4 different rules to try to figure out what was the appeals process. And there were some places where there were relatively inconsistent provisions especially on the procedural level. This just comes from, over a process of decades of Band-Aid solutions. Pretty soon you wind up with a little bit of a mess. Anyway, I think that it was a good process. It is now much easier to track how you follow appeals. One of the important changes, and it has sort of repeatedly come up, is re-emphasizing and clarifying that an appeal from a league decision on a transfer, for example, on an eligibility decision, must be brought by the member school, by the recipient school. The parent or student can't bring that appeal independently of their member school. And this fall, there were a couple of instances where we had to make that explanation that to parents and legal counsel that if you do have the right to an appeal, but it must be initiated by the member school. And that's an important policy. As Mike said, otherwise anybody who didn't like a decision could then bring it, put us into an appeals process. So please keep that in mind. It does put more responsibility, I suppose, on the member school to make a decision about whether or not they think a proposed appeal has sufficient validity that it should actually go up to the CHSAA level. We had several appeals committee appeals. The appeals committee is 3 retired school people, athletic directors and so forth, and they hear the appeal from the parents. I sit in only when there's a lawyer on the other side, and I will say that invariably the parents are the best advocates for their student, and the addition of legal counsel can help, not help, or be unnecessary, but it is the parents who are the best advocates. I want to compliment the members of the appeals committee. They do a really good job. They strive to make a fair decision. We have, in the last year, adopted the procedure where the appeals committee, well, first of all the appeals are now virtual. The appeals committee members are identified only by their first name, and that is an unhappy situation intended to protect their privacy and avoid harassment, potentially. Another aspect that has come up a couple of times is the interplay of the limited eligibility for seniors and for competitors, student athletes in schools that don't have a junior varsity. And that permits those athletes to compete on the varsity during the regular season, and but not during not during postseason. That intersects with the 365-day ineligibility rule, which in at least 2 cases this fall, the parents were surprised to find out that not only is my senior eligible to play during the school season, but his or her 365 days expires right before postseason. And so they have essentially full eligibility. Looking ahead, we have a couple of, what you might call major and national issues that will be affecting us. One of them, of course, is what's going to happen to Title IX at the federal level. And how is that going to intersect with Colorado state law concerning LGBTQ rights, and which, if federal law changes, if the Title IX interpretation at the federal law changes, which it does every 4 years, state law doesn't change necessarily. It doesn't change state law, and state law could be in competition with new Title IX. CHSAA rule, our CHSAA policy on those subjects tracks state law. We're a Colorado institution. As I said yesterday to the Legislative Council, we're kind of the midget in that battle. That's going to just take place between the federal government and the state government, and we'll pick up the pieces and try to apply them. And then the other one major topic is NIL, of course, and its impact at the high school level. There is legislation potentially pending that could have a big influence on that, and we'll be watching that together with our lobbyist, Joan Turner Green, and see and try to, well, our position is try to protect high school athletics from being monetized in a way that is really inconsistent in our view with the academic influence. So thank you for your attention and your patience, and good luck with your deliberations today.
All right, next up, agenda item 2.4, our finance update, and Sarah Vernon Bruner.
Thank you. Good morning. So today I'm going to be updating you on our finances, and before we dig into the numbers, we wanted to share something that we've worked on that really shows, will act as a compass to us as we make strategic financial decisions. You know, Mike talked about the strategic priorities of the organization, but this is I'm a few inches taller than Alex, but these are the objectives as it comes to our financials. So we want to share 4 financial objectives. The first one is to be responsible and strategic with our finances. Obviously, we want to be good stewards of the money, especially as a membership organization. You can go to the next one, Ryan, thanks. And especially as a nonprofit as well. The second one is to support our mission. Anytime we're making a financial decision, we really need to be thinking about how that impacts the mission of the organization and comes back to helping CHSAA. The third one is to build or maintain our reserves to ensure long-term stability. You know, we really saw how important it was to have reserves during the pandemic and to tap into those. And so, you know, we've been fortunate that that's been a priority of the organization, and we just want to keep that going. And the last one is to be transparent. So, you know, we always want to be open about our finances. We share them on our website. You know, we're here today to share that with you. So, you know, you can always count on us for that. So, hopefully in sharing those, that's something you've seen from us, not anything different, but just wanted to share. All right, so now talking about the numbers. So we wrapped up last year, fiscal year 2024. We ended with about $7 million in revenue, 6.3 in expenses, and a net income of $700,000. Last year, we still had some grant money coming in and had a strong year of ticket sales and playoff revenue, so we had a really great year. This year, we're projecting a revenue of $6.6 million and expenses of $6.4 million, so a net income of almost $200,000. So we're hoping to land somewhere between, where we ended last year and this year, depending on some of those variable numbers like state ticket sales. To update you on our reserves, so you've heard us talk about reserves a lot over the last couple of years. And when I say reserves, I mean funds that CHSAA has in low-risk investments that are not used to operate the business on a daily basis. So as you can see, it took a big dip in 2020 to 2022, and it's been going back up over the last couple of years. And some of our, coming off some strong years, we've been able to put money back. Last year, we were able to put $750,000 back into the reserves. So to give you an update on where we are today, so our reserve policy is to keep 50% of next year's budget in our reserves, and so that's about $3.2 million. And as of September 30th, we did actually hit our reserve goal, so we have satisfied our reserve goal. And what that means is that the membership refund policy is no longer on pause. So the one kind of nuance to that is that within our reserves, there's some funds like a building fund. And you've heard Mike talk over the last year or so that CHSAA is investigating, should we move offices? Do we build a new building? We're looking into those options. And so if we do end up doing a new build, obviously there's a cost to that, and we can't get a bond through a school district. We have to self-finance that. And so while we would never want to increase fees or use that money from the membership, we would need to use some money from our reserves to put towards that building. So that's one way in which the membership refund policy could get paused again, is if we have to dip into our reserves for that. So now talking about our current numbers through December, we're sitting at a revenue of $3.38 million, expenses of $2.86 million, and a net income of about $525,000. So we're tracking really closely to where we were projecting for the year. Looking deeper at our revenue, the membership fees. So this is where you can see the top line, very different than last year, the bottom line there, because we have the classification fee this year, and that's where this is reflected. So about $492,000 was taken out of sports and activities and moved to membership fees with that fee. We also had 4 new schools join the association this year. We added flag football, and just with being the change in the new cycle, we've seen a lot of schools adding sports and activities, so we saw some additional revenue coming in from that we didn't fully expect. Programs includes courtesy cards, first-year coaches registration, women in leadership, right on track with our projections. Officials also tracking very similar to last year. Corporate partnerships, most of those come into play later in the year, so that number will continue to increase. It's about 16% of our revenue. And then other income is really reflective of the interest income we've been getting now that our reserves have grown. We're getting additional interest income, and with the rates maintaining pretty strong. And then sports and activities. So we're at about $925,000, up about $100,000 from our projections. With adding flag football, that was difficult to plan. And we didn't know with the weather, as Brian talked about, and you all experienced this fall. Luckily, a couple events were down, like softball and volleyball ticket sales wise, but boys soccer, some were up. So we ended luckily in a good place with that. Going to expenses, programs includes All School Summit, Hall of Fame, Women in Leadership, And then officials, also pretty steady in expenses. The committees, we've had a few additional expenses because we hosted the small and rural school summits, paid for the SMAC videos, so some great expenses that we felt necessary to incur that we just hadn't planned on. And then operating expenses, right on track. Wages and benefits, some additional contractor expenses in there this year. And then sports and activities expenses of $746,000. So, you know, as you've seen with all expenses going up to host events, we're seeing that too. And we had some additional expenses with those weather changes and having to change some venues and days. So overall, a net income of $524,783. So really on track with what we were planning, and we're looking forward to seeing how the winter championships end up. So lastly, I just kind of wanted to touch on our membership fees, since you'll be voting on that through the budget committee today. This would be our 4th year of staying at the $948 membership dues and $161 for participation fees. You know, we recognize schools are all seeing cost increases, and with CHSAA's good financial position, we wanted to maintain those fees for everybody. And now I'd like to pass it to fellow board member for the foundation, John Hill, to give you a little update on the foundation.
All right, thank you. Good morning. My name is John Hill. I'm representing the foundation today. Our hope is by now you are familiar with the foundation and how impactful it is to students across our state. As a reminder, and for those of you that are new this year, the foundation seeks to provide opportunities for the membership, but more importantly, the foundation seeks to provide opportunities that enhance the experiences for our students. So we support initiatives that are outside the typical scope of the CHSAA. The foundation hosted our annual golf tournament at Arrowhead Golf Course this past August and raised over $16,000. Thank you to those who attended this year. We'll have more information on this year's tournament, hopefully near April. In addition, foundation games this year have generated over $6,600 to the foundation. Please continue utilizing your foundation games as a way to support the foundation and giving your athletes more opportunities to compete. 100% of the proceeds goes directly to the foundation. The foundation currently has $197,000 in assets and is currently supporting the AD mentorship program. The foundation is hosting our silent auction at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony this evening in this space, with 44 great items to bid on. Many of the items are available this morning outside for you to see. You should have all received an email announcing our first online auction, so if you are not able to attend tonight, you are still encouraged to bid on a special item. Some items include sports memorabilia, game tickets, food and drink options, golf packages, and jewelry. If you prefer not to bid on an item, you can still contribute by making a donation. If you'd like to take a look this morning, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen. And we just had a new experience, Top Golf with Justin Saylor. Justin, what's that starting bid? $1,000 golf with Justin. Now that one will go quick. If you have any additional questions regarding the online auction, please see Sarah. And all of the items at the auction go directly to the foundation. Finally, I'd like to thank the foundation board. We all have very busy schedules, but this group of individuals is committed to the initiatives that benefit our students across our state. Thank you for your time. We hope to see you this evening.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Sarah. And I'm sure you guys all saw when you walked in today, too, all the auction items are on display out there in the lobbyway as you come in as well. Bid for them online. Last up for the reports is 2.5, our student leadership update. And representing that group is Jada Ward.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jada Ward, and I am a senior at Eagle Crest High School. I currently serve as the CHSAA State Vice President of Leadership Development. It is an honor to be invited here to speak to you all of the student perspective within a CHSAA membership school like mine. I often wondered what my high school years would be like. I grew up watching movies such as High School Musical, where high school was full of spirit, unity, and of course, song and dance. My cousins would play me their all-school music videos, where every single aspect of their school was represented, from the basketball team to the robotics team. As a middle schooler, I would meet my friends at Legacy Stadium to attend Friday night football games. The vibrant student section and the invested parents are what made me excited to become a Raptor. When my time came to start my own version of high school, I, of course, wondered if it would be anything like the movies. And I'd say it's been even better. I mean, no one broke out into song or choreography my first day of school, but what's made these last 4 years special is the strong core values that my school dedicates itself to. This is, of course, derived from the foundation that all of us in this room have in common, which is CHSAA. From students to staff, there is a place for everyone. Any genuine cause always looks for a way to expand their message. This year, as mentioned, flag football and unified esports were implemented into our organization. I see the way those new spaces have become an outlet for students. My outlet over these past 4 years has been student leadership. Leadership has provided me with endless opportunities, and it is the reason why I stand in front of you today. I wasn't always very invested in school. Like many other middle schoolers, I put too much energy into the wrong things. I was consistently told by my teachers that I had leadership skills that could be used for good instead of destruction. My 8th grade year, it's like a hand reached out to pull me back onto the right path. That helping hand was the application for my Leadership Academy, the freshman leadership class. Participating in a CHSAA-sanctioned activity has helped me find my place. Us students are the future, and our involvement within our schools is what guides the shaping of that future. But it's you all who play a valuable role in cultivating these activities and athletics that provide everyone with a place within your school. I know that when I think of my leadership journey, I think of the many adults who have been a guidance to me. I promise you, every student in your building has an adult that they admire. Those are teachers, sponsors, coaches. They are the ones that get to know us on a personal level, that attempt to know the stress and struggles their students may be up against. The unconditional support you provide is something that not all students receive outside of school. In a world where differences are seen as weaknesses at times, you all ensure that every student knows their strength, no matter their upbringing. Don't give up on any student, no matter how many times they complain, because I know sometimes I do, because the student you may be mentoring is the future. Thank you for all taking the time to understand and uplift what it means to be a CHSAA member school. And lastly, thank you for making high school feel like a movie for all of us.
Thank you, Jada. Very well done. All right, now to the fun stuff. We'll go ahead and start getting into our action items here, section 3.0 of our agenda. You know, I talked earlier in my opening remarks about collaboration. Another great example of that is all of the CHSAA outreaches over the last couple weeks and the chances for athletic directors from various leagues and administrators to come together with CHSAA staff to go through all of these proposals and committee reports before we get to this day. So having a chance to thoroughly go through and think about that, come to consensus as a league on how you're going to vote on these things really does help speed this process up. So thank you for everybody that took part in that process. As we go through the day, if anybody needs to speak to a particular issue or whatever, please be recognized by the chair or by the committee representative standing at the podium. And there's a microphone right there in the center aisleway for everybody to go to should you need to address the group. Any questions before we get started? All right, voting members, if you want to get your consoles up in front of you, we'll just go ahead and dive right on into Constitutional Proposal 1 around league membership timelines. This one does require a 2/3 vote for approval because it is an amendment to the Constitution. Do we have a motion for the floor on Constitutional Amendment 1? Okay, John motions. Do we have a second? Do we need seconds on all these? Chad from Granite Peaks. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. And that passes unanimously. I was also just reminded that these are all brought forward already in the form of a motion, so we really just need a second for each one of these, and then we'll move into discussion. All right, moving to 3.2, administrative proposals. Admin 1, status of coaches. Do we have a second on this motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. That passes 69-1. Moving to admin 2, youth recognition events. Do we have a second on this motion? Chad, right? Or Greg, sorry, Greg. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. That passes 63-7. Moving on to admin 3, administrative control. Do we have a second on this motion? JD, Northern League? JJ, sorry. My eyes, I need my glasses, really. Any discussion? Go ahead. Can we reset the vote?
Jason Wilkins, representing CHSAA Board. The CHSAA Board, as you guys know, is made up of 18 representatives from throughout the state. We voted unanimously against Admin 3. We are in favor of the premise and in favor of a lot of the things that details and supports. We just think that it needs some fine-tuning and a little more concrete direction on how things are going to operate, and we would ask that this be revisited in the April legislative session.
Thank you, Jason. Any further discussion?
Jason, thanks for those comments too, and outreaches as we've discussed. And on behalf of the board, I think the premise of this proposal from the board of directors is the importance and the vital nature of having someone who can speak on behalf of the school that's involved in a postseason event. Postseason events are very high stakes. They can involve a lot of things. If there's, think of a number of precedents that we've had with games that have had an issue where we had to reschedule or play at a later date. We have situations that happen that involve medical emergencies where we can't necessarily sometimes find someone that we need to communicate with relative to that situation. There's a lot of reasons that this is important. The intent was certainly not to establish any expectation. And yes, I think one of the things that we talked about yesterday, there could be costs associated with this depending on how a school wants to approach this. But basically, what this bylaw is saying from the board is we need an administrator or someone who can speak on their behalf at a postseason event. That very well could be a head coach. Most of the time, at certain sports, it could be a head coach. We appreciate the notes and the comments back around the verbiage around the possible penalties around that. That is just consistent language with with other areas of our bylaws. Instead of creating specific things, there's a wide range of things that can happen there. And I understand, we understand that the failure to comply, the likelihood of a forfeiture, not. But we borrowed the language from other bylaws within the construct of the Constitution and bylaws to keep that language consistent. The bottom line of this bylaw is that it's important to have an administrator or someone that can speak on behalf of the school or the district or whoever that is. When the stakes are high, when it's postseason, I understand that if it's something that happens in the crowd behavior being one, we definitely, we need to have somebody that we can communicate with. When you are hosting a CHSAA postseason event at your school and it's not at a neutral venue, the importance of you as an administrator knowing who to contact if something should happen, those are important avenues of control. We're happy to bring this back if there needs tweaking, but I would tell you that as we've read through it, the language hits the primary pieces of it, and if we need to add Q&As for clarity or additional direction, we can certainly do that. The consistency around other parts of our bylaws using that penalty information is very consistent with what we do in other areas. The direction is basically saying that the administrator or their designee can speak on behalf of the school. The process we will definitely lay out. We talked about using gate lists. Those things wouldn't be spelled out in a bylaw anyway. Those specifics don't get included. So we appreciate your consideration on this one. And if you have questions, please let us know.
Thanks, Mike. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Still missing 2 votes. All right, that passes by majority, 37-31. Admin 4, Sunday practice in regards to ice hockey. Do we have a second on this motion? Second, Larry Bull. Larry Bull, second. Any discussion? Larry?
Larry Bull, Centennial League. I'm asking for support in this, and reason being is that we have no control over the venues that are outside of our school district. This has been an issue for probably 4 or 5 years with the growth of youth hockey, and essentially what's ended up happening is associations are placing their youth programs in instead of ice hockey, or the high school programs. If this doesn't impact you, I'm not a person that's up here saying, let's go Sundays, let's do this. I believe there needs to be a day off. This does impact ice hockey within the metro area. I'm not sure about the mountains and so on. The other thing that this does is if you don't have a coach that's part of the Ice Hockey Association or does the ice scheduling, you're at a disadvantage, and literally ice hockey teams are losing practice time for this. This will not allow games. It's ice hockey. Schools can choose to do this. Mullen, who's in the Centennial League, they will not practice on Sundays. But for us, if we can get ice on a Sunday, it would benefit our ice hockey program. So asking for support with this Sunday for ice hockey. I do not know about skiing, but I'm sure it's very similar, that we have no control over the venues where our kids participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. That passes 54-14. Moving on to Admin 5, Sunday practice in regards to alpine skiing. Do we have a second on this motion?
Amy Peters, Frontier.
Amy, Frontier League. Any discussion? Go ahead, Amy, and then we'll go to the back.
Amy Peters, Frontier. Just as a school that does offer skiing, ski resorts close at 4 p.m., which means we can't get there unless we're missing school time, and this would be a big benefit for us.
Sean DePaula, Netherland Mill Senior High School. We are one of 16 ski schools in the entire state, and I ask for your support with this, just as you guys did with ice hockey. As Amy just said, ski resorts closing at 4 p.m. creates a big challenge for us. We try to mitigate the impact on students' education as much as possible, including minimizing practice to 2 days a week. But even with practice 2 days a week and high school races, our kids miss half of their ski season, half of their classes each ski season. Allowing Sunday contact would be beneficial to us. Ski resorts have indicated their willingness to accommodate us on Sunday afternoons. And so with that being said, as someone who does not support Sunday contact, I do support this proposal. I think it's what's best for our student athletes and maximizing their education. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. That passes 56-14. All right, we'll move into 3.3, our athletic proposals. In case you didn't get the memo, proposal 4 has been pulled. We pulled that, the board of directors pulled that proposal yesterday, so we will not be voting on that one. We'll start with athletic proposal 1, football season of sport. Do we have a second on this motion? Kevin Benji, Denver. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. That passes 56-14. Moving on to Athletic 2, football equipment dates. These kind of all roll from Athletic 1. Athletic 2, football equipment dates. Second on this motion. Patrick Jeffco, any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. We're not to our break yet, Ryan. Okay, go ahead and vote. And that passes 64-6. Last athletic proposal, Athletic 3, football contact date. Do we have a second on this motion? Mark? Or Wes? Sorry, Wes. Even with my glasses, it's not helping. Wes from Centennial League, do we have any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. And that passes 65-5. All right, we've been sitting for about an hour and a half now. This would be a logical place for a break. It's 10:28. Let's do our best to make this really quick and get back in our seats by 10:35. That's 7 minutes. We really like to stay on time and try to get this first part done by noon so we can proceed with the press conference. Quick 7-minute break, stand and stretch, use the bathrooms if you need to, but come right back, please. I believe there's still some snacks and coffee in the back if you need to grab something to refresh.
Legislative Council.
Not as skinny as I used to be. I would have met up with sorry. Oh, yeah.
Hey, just to double check, did we have somebody show up after roll call that didn't get to vote for pineapple on a pizza? We're showing 71 voters now instead of 70. Just want to make sure that's accurate. Did we have somebody show up and log on after we voted for pineapple on the pizza? All right, let's start heading back to our seats. Get started here in about 2 minutes. So we don't need to acknowledge that with this. It's nice to have an odd number. But all right, about 1 minute. We'll get started in 1 minute. Let's head back to our seats. John, you want to just see if anybody's still out there? All right, let's dive back in. We're going to go to section 4.0 of our agenda, our action items on our committee reports. For those of you keeping tally at home, we did have one person show up a little bit later and get registered into the system after we took roll, so we're up to 71 total voters now. So for those of you keeping score from your chairs, total of 71. We're going to start with committee report number 1, our budget and property administration, and we'd recognize Bill Sutter from Boulder Valley School District.
Thank you, President West, members of the Legislative Council. Bill Sutter, Chief Financial Officer for Boulder Valley School District and Chair of the Budget and Property Administration Committee. I would just want to thank the committee for their work, participating in the conversations. One major change to the report, membership dues and participation fees will remain the same for the 25-26 school year and will not increase. I think that's welcome news. So I move for the adoption of the Budget and Property Administration Committee report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved. Do we have a second? Travis Steiner, Patriot League. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Five seconds. That passes 69-1. Thank you, Bill.
All right, thank you to the Legislative Council.
CR2, Classification and League Organization, or CLOC Committee. I'd like to recognize Clay Abla from Littleton Public Schools. Recognize Mike Kruger, not from Littleton Public Schools.
I think Clay must have had a phone call. On behalf of the CLOC Committee, I want to thank that group for all their hard work, especially over the last couple of years, and then in anticipation of all the stuff coming forward, I want to thank that group. There are no major changes at this time. I move for the adoption. I can't vote.
You can't. So this one we will need a motion in a second. Do we have a motion to adopt the CR2? Thank you. Patrick Jeffco, second. John from CSML. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Okay. 5 seconds. That passes 69-1. Thank you. Moving on to CR3, Coach Education and Registration. Chair recognizes Jesse Shawcroft from Centauri.
Thank you. Wish to thank the committee, John Sullivan, for the work that they do on this committee. And the major change, we recommended that in our school that there be a checkbox to allow athletic directors to show that coaches are certified or have that document on file with the school, and that they are indeed certified. That's the one major change that we made. So I move for the adoption of the committee coaching education and registration report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved. Thank you, Jesse. Do we have a second? Ryan, Patriot League. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. 5 seconds. That passes 70-0. Let's see, next up, I think we're a little out of order. I show CR 6, officials fees. Recognize Eric Johnson from Windsor High School.
Good morning, everybody. Mr. President, thank you. Members of the LC. On behalf of the Officials Fees Committee, we do recognize the trust that the membership has put forth in the changes that were proposed a couple of cycles ago, and know that next year will be the last year of the 3-year fee structure that was passed and increased. We recognize that that has a significant impact to the membership, and at this point have no plans to increase any significant fee structure moving ahead. The committee will be meeting to roll out the next 1 or 2 year plan, keeping in mind the changes that will occur. But again, no major changes to the report and no plans for any significant fee increase at this time. That said, I would, at this time, motion for the adoption of the committee report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved. Thank you, Sean. Do we have a second? Jason from, what are you with? You're with CATA today, right? You wear too many hats. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. Motion carries 70-0. Thank you, Eric. Next up, CR5, Esports. Recognize Sean Collins.
First, I'd like to say thank you very much for the Esports Committee for all their work during this time. At this time, we have no new changes to our report for this. I would like to move to adopt the committee report as submitted to the Legislative Council at this time.
So moved. Thank you, Sean. Do we have a second? Jeff beat you to it. Jeff, North Central. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. Motion carries 70-0. We sure we still have 71?
Thank you to the Legislative Council. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next up, CR10 Music. Chair recognizes Casey Kropp, CMEA President.
Very good. I know on behalf of Rashawn, he would definitely thank the committee for their work and just appreciate everybody who hosts our music festivals. So with that, there's no major changes, and at this time, we move for the adoption of the report.
So moved. Do we have a second? All right, Andy, got you this time. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote on music. Five seconds. Motion carries 70-0. Thank you. Next up, CR12, Student Leadership. Chair recognizes Amanda Jones from Greeley West.
Good morning. I want to thank the committee for their work. We have a lot of state partnerships that help make that possible for student leadership around the state. There are no major changes in what you see forth, but I would like to make an emphasis on the dates and sites for our CHSAA State Student Leadership Summer Conference. If you've been around the game for a while, you know that that used to be hosted at CSU. It was specifically for student council. We have moved as a committee in the last couple of years in bringing that event back. We are now at Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction. What we do have an emphasis that we are looking for student leaders leaders within your building. So it is not just your student council students. So as that information comes forward, please making sure that you are communicating that opportunity with your drum majors, your kids that are presidents of different clubs and organizations, your captains. There's a place for them at that leadership conference, and it's not just student council. With that, I'd like to move for the adoption of the student leadership report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved, thank you. Do we have a second? Travis, Patriot League, any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. That is approved 70 to 0. Thank you, Amanda. All right, moving into our sport committee report, CR 13 baseball. Vince Orlando from Eagle Crest.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the Legislative Council and Board of Directors this morning, and thank the Baseball Committee for all their due diligence and hard work in our committee meeting. The major changes from last year's report will be the Baseball Committee recommends the approval for minimum games to qualify for playoffs was reduced by 2 games for the 2025 and 26 seasons. Baseball Committee also recommended to expand the regional playoff round for 4A and 5A to double elimination format until the final game. That will be an edit on our next committee meeting next fall. The number of teams in the regional site remains at 4, but will be played over 2 days. This will be effective in the 2026 season. I move for the adoption of the Baseball Committee report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved. Thank you, Vince. Do we have a second? Greg from Intermountain League. Any discussion? Recognize Chris Knoll.
Good morning, Chris Knoll from the Colorado Springs Metro League 5A. I would make the motion to strike C from the committee report, please.
So we have a motion on the floor to strike C from which part? Which C?
C, expand the regional playoff round for 4A and 5A to double elimination.
Okay, so section
1C.
1C?
Yes.
So we have a motion on the floor to amend the committee report to strike section 1C. Do we have a second on that motion? Mike from Jeffco. Any discussion on the amendment to strike 1C from the committee report?
Mr. President, we just want to bring up a couple of different things. One of the financial impacts, it says it may be a financial issue. We believe it will absolutely be a financial issue. When you start to look at basically doubling that regional tournament, we believe there's going to be a significant financial impact, especially with the way that we've changed the tournament and playoff reporting and the reports. When you start talking about teams that are going to get stuck, we believe that there's going to be some lodging and those kind of things, so we believe there's going to be a financial impact. As somebody that works with Commissioner Sullivan for the last 5, 6, 7 years hosting the 4A state baseball tournament, we know what weather does. And when you start talking about a double elimination tournament, we believe there's going to be weather issues. It's going to extend the tournament. So we believe that fields and weathers are going to be an issue. You know better than anybody, as you said this morning, when you start trying to prep fields. When we deal with weather with Mr. Sullivan, we deal with the Air Force Academy. We deal with some of these different places where getting teams of maintenance staff to work on fields is not an issue. When you start talking about the different regional sites, we believe that fields are going to be an issue. We also believe this could widen the gap between the has and the has-nots, between your baseball schools and your non-baseball schools. We also believe that we don't need more games. Ultimately, when you look at the state tournament, those 2 weekends of the state tournament, typically the right teams are making that tournament. The top seeds are making that tournament, so we don't see that we need more games, and we believe ultimately this could widen the gap between the has and the has-nots in the baseball world. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It's heartwarming to know that somebody listened to my opening remarks this morning. Still, any further discussion on the amendment? Chad from Granite Peak?
Chad Eisentrager, Granite Peaks League. Up north, we also address the concerns that we are not now giving equal access to a like sport with softball. The fact that we'll have a double elimination regional and a double elimination state tournament now, and we have concerns on our end to whether that impacts softball. So as our recommendation, if we want to go forward with such a proposal, it should have occurred when softball could have made a like proposal, so we can match those two activities up. But with the softball committee report coming up without having this addended to it, we have concerns about the Title IX legitimacy of having a different state event for a boys' sport when the like sport does not occur for the girls' sport.
Thank you, Chad. Tom, Continental League.
Tom, Continental League, Tom Brisky. I want the record to state that I respect and like all those gentlemen right there, except for maybe Chris. Yeah, we just believe that a double elimination tournament assures the best teams are going to make it in the state tournament. We've all been in situations where we're the host team, meaning you're one of the higher seeds. You know, a 30 seed comes in, they have a really good pitcher. They eliminate you from the tournament. We believe that baseball is more a body of evidence sport. That's why in the major leagues they have a World Series. It's a multiple chances. You have pitching depth, things like that. And if you're a top seed based on your season record, we feel that that should shine through. And in a double elimination tournament, it does. Getting rid of that if game, if necessary game, you're looking at 3 games each day. And so the winner bracket team would play 3 games, and someone coming up through the losers bracket would play 4 games total. There is an expense of, lodging perhaps for teams that have to travel. But I would argue that when you travel and you put yourself in the kid's shoes, if you travel 300 miles to go play a game or a tournament and you lose 1 game and you turn around and drive home, that's not much of an experience. Going to a double elimination tournament where if you are that team that's maybe 20 seed or 16 seed or whatever, and you happen to lose the first game, you still have a chance to earn your way back in and play for that opportunity to go to the state tournament the next weekend. So I think looking from the kid's perspective and the coach's perspective, it's more of a tournament versus just traveling somewhere for 1 game perhaps. And I think it's a better experience for the kids involved and the coaches involved. And there's already expense of traveling. You're already traveling, so the expense is really probably a night's lodging. And I think that's a cost that I would gladly pay for my student athletes to be able to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Kevin, City League.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks to the Baseball Committee for this work. So we've gone back and forth on this committee proposal, and we are against it for a lot of the reasons that have already been discussed, including the widening of the gap. It was just mentioned that baseball is a little different and that there's a series that should be played, but this is high school sports. A lot of our games in the postseason are one and done type of scenarios. This is no different, and this proposal does tip the scales towards deeper teams and deeper rotations, and that's just not in the best interest of the schools that we represent. So I would also suggest that we strike C. Thank you.
Mike from Jeffco.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, along with that, and being a baseball coach for a long time before this position, I was always a proponent of wanting to have more games. In looking at this proposal, though, the difficult part of this is the widening of that gap. The difficulty for us and even mimicking what maybe college looks like in their regionals, where they do have double elimination, is theirs is played over 3 days, and they have now adjusted down to 34-man rosters versus us only 23-man rosters. But if we even look at our teams, I think the difficulty that we have is most of the schools having the ability to have a a full 23 that has arms that are varsity capable, and kind of matching that up along with our pitch count rules over 2 days means that you have to have a lot of players with a lot of arms, and that does separate a little bit of the haves and have-nots in that world, which makes it difficult for any of those teams or what those games look like when we're playing that 6th or 7th game, as it could be in that regional. What the scores and length of time of that game could be as we get down to a little bit less pitching does make it difficult for some of our schools.
Thank you, DJ. Any further discussion on the amendment to strike 1, 2, and 3C from the baseball committee report? Mike from Jeffco.
Save the comments. I'd already like to recognize that, we hear these comparisons all the time to, Major League Baseball or the College World Series. We're not those. Okay, we're high school athletics. And there's the 1 through 8 seed in high school baseball and in most sports that we offer already have an inherent advantage. They already have had a better record. I get that. They get to host. They get to have this home advantage. There's so many advantages to this. You're taking away an opportunity from essentially from a 24 seed down from saying they get any opportunity to make it to the state baseball playoffs, to make it to the championship round. It pretty much is an elimination. It doesn't account for injuries. It doesn't account for a lot of things that can impact somebody's record over the course of a season. So I think that it would be inherently at fault with the way we do things as a CHSAA membership to grant those top 8 seeds an even bigger advantage, in my humble opinion. So I hope that you will vote to stricken this. We need 2/3 vote to stricken it from the report, and I hope that we would receive that today. Thank you.
So under rules, I don't think you can.
Can I recognize someone?
You can recognize someone.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to do. I'd like to recognize Dan Symington from Legend High School.
Thanks. Dan?
Good morning. The Continental League, which I'm the czar for, brought this forward. All 10 of our 11 coaches were in favor of this and really addressing comparisons between us and other states. Our coaches were in favor of this. Looking at the number of games that Colorado offers, this gives our coaches another opportunity for that. But in addition, just our passion for making sure that the best teams in the state do make the state playoff games, and we are putting our best competition there in terms of our development of our programs and our kids. So I would just recommend that we do not strike this, and appreciate you.
Thank you, Dan. Jason, Kata?
Well, this is fun. We're at least talking about something. This is a good time here. I will say something. I disagree with Mike's point of we're eliminating the opportunity. I think he used 24 for 32. There's no opportunity eliminated. In fact, they got more opportunities, so I disagree with that point. I also would like to point out that people are speaking against this on regional weekend of having the double elimination, but we do that for softball. And when we get to the second weekend, when we get to the state tournament, it is double elimination. But nobody's complaining about that, so I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Any further discussion? So the motion that's on the floor right now and what we'll be voting on is an amendment to the baseball committee report to strike 1, 2, and 3C from the committee report. Since this amendment came from the floor, it does need to pass with a 2/3 majority. Let's go ahead and vote. What's that? Well, 1C, 2C, and 3C are all tied together. The changes with the rationale, with the financial impact are all tied together on there. So essentially, you're striking all 3 of the Cs. They're all connected with each other. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and vote on the amendment. All right, so the amendment. Okay, so Tom, did you need a clarification?
I just want to make sure a no vote means we are not striking. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Correct.
I just want to make sure.
A yes vote means that we are striking C.
A no vote is to retain the language. Abstentions don't count, 50 to 12.
So by a 2/3 majority of 50 to 12, the amendment does pass. So now we're back to the original question on the floor of proposing the committee report for baseball as amended. Do we have a second on that motion? Second. Patrick from Jeffco, do we have any discussion on the baseball committee report as amended? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote to approve baseball committee report CR 13 as amended. Five seconds. I've yet to see the 71st person. All right, committee report passes as amended, 62 to 9. There we go, there's 71, 62 to 9. Thank you.
Thank you,
Vince.
everybody. Appreciate it.
Next up, we have a proposed amendment to the basketball committee report brought forth by the Foothills League. Before we can consider this amendment, we need a motion, second, and approval to reopen the basketball committee report that was approved last April. So before we can consider this amendment, we would need a motion to reopen the basketball committee report from last April. Do we have such a motion? Sean, second. Amy, Frontier League. Any discussion on reopening the basketball committee report from last April? Sean and then Travis.
I would like to recognize Cameron Wright from Twin Peaks Charter Academy to speak to this issue.
We're not speaking to the amendment yet, we're just speaking to reopening the basketball committee report.
I know shot clock is the last thing anyone wants to talk about, myself included, but I ask that we please open the basketball committee report so we can have a fair discussion about this, and we will move forward with the desires of the membership. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Travis.
Just speaking as a long-term member of the Legislative Council, it is my opinion that opening past committee reports and past year's items is not a great precedence for us to follow, especially when we have a basketball committee meeting upcoming here in a couple of weeks where this topic could be addressed at the committee meeting and brought forth through the basketball committee itself.
Thank you. Any further discussion on reopening the basketball committee report? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Five seconds. Motion fails, 50 to 20. We'll move on to CR 15, Cross Country Committee Report. Recognize Kevin Clark from Thompson School District.
Good morning. No changes to the cross-country report. Would like to give a big thank you to Cheyenne Mountain, Chris Roberts, and his staff for, again, hosting another successful state cross-country meet. Other things I'd point out is nationally, where Colorado distance running, we know that Colorado is one of the premier states, but big congratulations to Niwot High School boys and Mountain Vista girls, as they were the Nike national champions this year. So 2 national titles from state of Colorado. Again, probably shows the level of distance runner, the level of athletes we do have in our states. And in with the committee report, you will see that the asterisk has been moved. So I'd urge you to double check that to see if you are going to be a regional host next year. And beyond that, at this time, a motion for the adoption of the cross-country committee report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved, Kevin, thank you. Do we have a second? Amy Frontier League, any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. Motion carries 69-0. Moving on to CR 16 Field Hockey Committee report. Chair recognizes John Hill from Colorado Academy.
Thank you. I know this is everybody's favorite sport to talk about. But first, I'd like to thank the Field Hockey Committee for their hard work and dedication throughout the school year. This year, there are no major changes from the 2024-25 Field Hockey Report. With that, I move for the adoption of the Field Hockey Committee report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved. Thank you, John. Do we have a second? Jason, Cada, second. Do we have any discussion?
I thought you were going to get up. Thought you'd be most proud about this one.
Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Five seconds. Motion carries unanimously, 71-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up, CR 19 Golf. Chair recognizes Adam Baumgartner from Pueblo 70 Schools.
Good morning. Thanks, President. Good morning, LC. To start off, that's going to be a tough one to follow, but we're going to give it a shot. So, thanks to the Golf Committee for their work. They were faced with, let's face it, 3 issues. One of the issues were CGA officials' availability during regionals. The second issue, host sites for regionals. Third issue, host golf courses for regionals. Common denominator was regional. Here was our major changes for this. Basically, we're putting in to where we would have no regionals throughout the state, obviously 2 through 5A. By removing regionals, we thought, you know what, we probably should have some requirements when you're hosting a qualifying tournament. You see some of those in there, a minimum of 5 rounds and 18 holes as far as per round, some yardage, verification, as well as some max rounds on a certain course. Because if any of you have played golf with Mike Book, he'll always want to go play one course because that's the only course he's good at. So, beyond that, we've done our due diligence to figure out how we can move forward with this, facing those issues with host sites. I have nothing else. Where does it tell me to say? I move to adopt the Golf Committee report as submitted to Legislative Council.
So moved. Thank you, Adam. Do we have a second? Chad from Granite Peak, any discussion? Go ahead.
Clark Kindler, Western Slope League. I would like to move to eliminate item 1A, the elimination of the regional tournaments.
So we have a motion on the floor to amend the Golf Committee report to strike 1A regarding elimination of the regional tournaments. Do we have a second on that motion? Larry Centennial, any discussion on proposed amendment? Mike from Jeffco.
Sorry, Mike Hughes, Jeffco. Several things to go with the golf. Adam, I was in your chair a number of years ago when Tom Robinson started this kind of idea of I Want to Maker. Golf's two different sports in two different seasons, girls and boys, and the 5 mandatory rounds issue that comes in to make this happen, there's a number of things. 1, the number of rounds. 2, are we going to take an average of the 5 rounds? 3, how do teams qualify? There are a lot of things that about this proposal to have 84 individuals. In everything we do as CHSAA is a team concept. And now all of a sudden we're going to something that's just about getting individual qualifiers. I know we have individual qualifiers for wrestling. I know we have individual qualifiers in certain sports. I just don't think this is the right move for us. I think there's an idea that we could make as a hybrid model. I'll take to Mike Book later, but right now we need to, in my opinion, defeat this and then move to kind of make an amended version of a number of qualifiers and then go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Chad, Granite Peak.
I would disagree that this goes against the team format. If you read, they did a really good job explaining within the committee report how you choose your team and the 84 golfers. It mirrors exactly what the season is right now. It looks a lot like wrestling where you qualify a certain number of wrestlers. That's how you're going to win. So if you have a minimum of 3 golfers that qualify in the top 84, you have an opportunity to win that state championship still. So those things don't change. The removal of the regional both saves time and money. And then when we talk about IWR takes into account all of these things. Doyle sends out every year to us what IWR does. I encourage you as athletic directors to look and see how IWR is measured. It is not just good kid, bad golf course, he gets a good score. It takes into account slope, rating, all of those things once the person who manages the course uploads yardage and pin location. So all those things are already included in those things. This guarantees the top 84 golfers. And people will say, kids will try to manipulate their scores leading up to this if they're close to that cut line. Ladies and gentlemen, our kids already manipulate their scores at regional and state events. So this comes down to a leadership thing with our coaches and our programs to worry about. If we're concerned about kids cheating, it is already occurring. And so we have to be cognizant of those things. These scores are not easily manipulated if the rounds are entered and scored correctly.
Thank you.
The PPAC would like to recognize Chris Roberts.
Okay. Chris?
You're welcome.
So I'm not convinced that IWR is accurate. I would like to reference the girls' state tournament in 4A last spring, and that the yardages were inaccurate and not correct. So if we conceptually agree, I can't remember who said that, I think there's a place for this, but IWR has not consistently measured the items that Chad just spoke to. So until we get that mechanism fixed, I don't think it's appropriate to select 84 kids with it.
Thank you, Chad. Any further discussion on the amendment on the floor?
Mr. West, am I able to speak from this spot, or do I got to take a walk? We're good? All right, just making sure. Thank you. As far as, let me put some things out there. As far as 84 golfers, it's still limited, right? As far as 4 per school. Okay, there is that conception. Is it the top 84 across the state? No. Cheyenne Mountain, you wouldn't be able to have 16 golfers in there. You'd only be able to have 4. No shot, not taking a shot at you, Chris. I'm just throwing it out there. So just know there's still a limit per school. The other thing I want to say is this, is that right now, as far as the regional concept, we're one of few states across the United States that use this regional concept for qualifying for state golf. The other thing I'll say is this, if this doesn't pass, okay, please do me a favor and volunteer to host regionals. Find a site to host regionals.
Thank you. Kevin?
Thanks for that. So we volunteer. We're working on girls golf. The one thing I haven't heard yet is that golf's a beautiful sport. The regional's a beautiful event. Some of the things that happen at a regional might be the same weather, the same time of day, which can impact a golf score. And that way, every student that's playing for the regional event to advance to the state tournament, state finals, is playing in the same conditions. You can't say that it's the same conditions when you're just ranking it from a computerized ranking. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Keep in mind that a yes vote for the amendment means it will be stricken. 1A will be stricken from the committee report. A no vote will leave the committee report as is. Go ahead and vote. Ten seconds. This requires a 2/3 majority to pass, so the amendment, proposed amendment to strike change A from the committee report fails. So we revert back to the previous question to vote on the, we have a motion on the floor to pass the golf committee report as written. Do we have a second on that motion? Second? Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. Motion carries to the committee report as written, 44-22 with 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, CR 20, gymnastics. Chair recognized Lisa Sparrow from Overland High School, or Jen Roberts-Ulig, not from Overland High School.
Thank you, President. I just want to thank the committee and our chair, Lisa, who does a fabulous job, and I'd be remiss if I didn't also point out Audra Kathy, who does an amazing job with our gymnastics world. So thank you to all of them, and with that, I move for the adoption of the report.
So moved. Do we have a second? Jason from CADA, any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. Motion carries 69-0. Thank you, Jen. Moving on to CR 25, Soccer Committee Report. Recognize Mike Lovinguth from Arupe Jesuit.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking all the soccer committee members for their hard work. We had a lot of good debates this year and a lot of dedication from our committee members, so thank you to them and to the coaches committee and referees committees also for participating in that. With that, there are no major changes from the 2024-2025 soccer report, so I now move for the adoption of the soccer committee report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved. Thank you, Mike. Do we have a second? John, I'm going for credit reports, CSML. All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. 5 seconds. Motion carries 70-0. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks to the Legislative Council.
Next up, CR 26 Softball Committee Report. Chair recognizes Marty Tonjes from Horizon High School.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to give thanks to John Sullivan and the softball committee for all the hard work and dedication that they have put forth over the year in making this sport as good as it is right now. There's a couple of changes to our report. The first one there is offering a Tier 2 option for hosting if you're a 4A and 5A level school. And that is set to, if you're a host, we're now moving towards the one-day hosting competition. So if you do not have access to 2 fields on your site, we are adding that you would use a neighboring school as a proposed solution. If that's not the case, any 2-day tournament would then have to be approved by CHSAA. And the second change includes the head-to-head component when seeding. We've had a couple of instances in the past where we've had head-to-head games throughout the year. We might have a 2 and a 3, and the 2 lost to the 3 earlier in the season. So we are asking that if they are right next to each other in rankings, we have the ability to flip them based on head-to-head. With that being said, I move for the adoption of the softball committee report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved. Thank you, Marty. Do we have a second? Okay, Leroy, Kata, any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. Motion carries 68-2.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Marty. Next up, CR 28, Swimming and Diving. Chair recognizes Jill Schrader from Heritage High School.
Good morning. Thank you to the committee and Mike Book for all their work this year. We have no major changes, and so I move for the adoption of the Swim and Dive Committee report to be submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved. Thank you, Jill. Do we have a second?
That was pulled yesterday for the start date.
Yeah, so 5D under informational items, you can strike that. That bylaw was removed from the agenda today. Thank you. Do we have a second to the motion? Kevin? City League? Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Motion carries 71-0. Thank you, Jill. Next up, CR 29 Tennis Committee Report. Chair recognizes Chris Roberts from Cheyenne Mountain High School.
Oops. We have, first, thanks Bethany for your leadership, Lakin for keeping us organized, and the whole crew, making sure that we put forward a good report. So with that, we have no major changes for tennis, and I move for the adoption of the Tennis Committee report.
So moved. Thank you, Chris. Do we have a second? Andy, Colorado Springs Metro. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. All right, motion carries 70-1. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Next up, CR 30A is an amendment to the Track and Field Committee report. Before we can consider the amendment, we need to vote on reopening the Track and Field Committee report presented last April. Is there a motion on the floor to reopen the Track and Field Committee report? Going once? Going twice? Richard, Arkansas Valley League, is there a second? Connor from YWKC, thank you. Any discussion on reopening the Track and Field Committee report? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. We are voting on reopening the Track and Field Committee report. Five seconds. Motion to reopen the report fails, 40-29 with one abstention. Moving on to CR 31, Unified Bowling. Chair recognizes Chris Enzigmeyer from Littleton.
First, I want to thank Jen and Audra from CHSAA for all of their leadership and support. I recognize, yeah, Leroy, my name is close to that. Relax. Ensminger, by the way. I recognize our partnership with Special Olympics Colorado and our amazing committee for Unified Bowling. We've grown this year to 10 regions and over 60 schools. So we are close to the next step probably being evaluating when it's necessary to split into an additional classification or possibly a division based on need. But we did not choose to go in that direction this year, so there are no major changes to this year's committee report. And with that, I move for the approval of the Unified Bowling Committee report as submitted to the Legislative Council.
So moved. Thank you, Chris Ensminger. Sorry, I butchered your name. I apologize for that. Do we have a second? Matt, Kata, any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Motion passes unanimously, 71-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Play unified, live unified.
Thanks, Chris. Last but not least, CR 32 Volleyball Committee report. Chair recognizes David Walk from Fossil Ridge.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unlike the officials chair, the volleyball chair is appreciative of his committee's work, Bethany and Lakin. Shout out to EJ on that. Volleyball committee has just one major changes to the boys state championship schedule. Other than that, not much else changes. So thank you to everybody. I said that already. Let's see. I now make motion to submit the volleyball committee as submitted to LC.
So moved. Thank you. Do we have a second? Everybody wants to second this one. Go with Kyle, Western Slope. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Five seconds. Motion carries 70-0. Thank you. All right, at this time I would invite all of our outgoing Board of Directors members to come up to the podium and introduce your nomination to take your place on the board next year. Start with District 3, represented by our Sarah Crawford's current outgoing board member. Mr. Kruger will represent her.
On behalf of District 3, their superintendents and outgoing board member Sarah Crawford, the nomination to be voted on in April for District 3 to replace Sarah Crawford is Trent Kerr from Wiggins High School.
Outgoing District 4 board member Cameron Wright.
My nomination for replacing District 4 is from Jeffco, Patrick Simpson.
District 5, we have a current board member who's been filling in this year for District 5 and will be voted on in April to continue in that role, and that's Jeff Holloway from Kent, Denver. Jeff, stand to be recognized. Representing District 6, Jim Flanagan.
Thank you. District 6 is nominating Reed Dowdy from Flatirons Academy and the Mile High League.
Representing District 9, Alfie Lotrick.
The nominee for District 9 will be Ellie Nail from Pueblo East High School, representing the South Central League.
Representing Case, outgoing board member Robert Frammel. Mr. Kruger will represent him.
Thank you, sir. For Case, the nomination on behalf of Robert Frammel, whose term is expiring, is Dan Melendrez, the superintendent from Genoa Hugo.
And our last outgoing member is our representative from the Colorado State Legislature, Senator Tony Exum. His term is expiring, and we have yet to determine who is going to be taking his place on our CHSAA board representing the Colorado Legislature. So we will let you know when that happens, and then when we get to the next LC meeting here in April, we will vote to approve all of these new board members. All right. Before we adjourn, we got a big deal. So I'm going to recognize Mr. Kruger here at the podium again.
Thank you, President West. It's really exciting to share this information with you. Earlier this morning, the Denver Broncos Foundation sent out a press release and announcing a new initiative that's entitled All In, All Covered. For those of you that are not aware, the Denver Broncos Foundation is the philanthropic arm of the Denver Broncos organization and do quite amazing work for our communities. But I'm really super excited to share this with you. It's something that the Denver Broncos Foundation approached us with, myself and John Sullivan, about 4 months ago, and we've been working hard to keep it close to the vest. It's a very exciting opportunity for CHSAA, for our member schools, and on behalf of the Broncos. But the announcement here we will share with you first, and then I'm going to be heading upstairs for a press conference that'll be taking place with media. Media that's down here, you're also invited to head upstairs to the press conference as well. But on behalf of the Denver Broncos Foundation, CHSAA, and partners Children's Hospital, Common Spirit Health, and Ent Credit Union, the Denver Broncos Foundation over the next 4 years will be providing 15,516 brand new Riddell Axiom helmets to every high school tackle football program in the state of Colorado. That's 277 of our 372 member schools that will benefit from this initiative. The new helmets are really the state of the art, the most advanced helmet that I believe you can buy on the market right now. It does come with Insight technology and the Insight Analytics program, which helps measure contact limits and contact levels. That's a coach education tool as well. So very excited about that opportunity. This will be an incredibly valuable tool to help educate coaches, also obviously promoting player health and wellness as this initiative takes place. The commitment by the Denver Broncos Foundation truly is unprecedented. It comes on the heels of a multi-year partnership that we just wrapped up last year, and actually the culmination of such, which we had with Girls Flag Football Championships, which just happened a couple of months ago for us. So on the heels of that, this initiative is the single largest philanthropic investment in Broncos organization history. So it's to be partnered with the Broncos and CHSAA is pretty incredible. I do want to recognize a number of folks from the Broncos organization who are upstairs right now, but Bobby and Allie, that you know from their community foundation, their community outreach, through their work with us with Girls Flag Football and now with this initiative, really deserve a lot of the credit for helping spearhead this. Along with Denver Broncos President Damani Leach, who's upstairs, will be providing some comments. Really excited from Damani perspective to be involved with this. He does such great work, and he's such a great leader of the Denver Broncos organization. So lastly, I want to definitely a heartfelt thank you to Greg Penner and Carrie Walton Penner, the ownership of the Denver Broncos. We're really blessed in Colorado and throughout Broncos country to have such caring, thoughtful servant leaders as the owners of our cherished Denver Broncos franchise. Their commitment to our communities, our schools, our coaches, and our athletes is not only evidenced by incredible initiatives like the one we're sharing with you today, but their commitment is inspirational, and it's really heartfelt, the efforts that they put forward to be involved with our community. So really excited to share that with you. A lot of information will be coming out on this, on how you get involved. Obviously, there's no obligation to our football programs or our member schools, but we certainly hope that you can take advantage of this great opportunity that's being provided to you. On behalf of our staff, we are also going to be working on educational materials for you relative to Title IX and how you can account for those donations because it is so substantial, but we also want to make sure that you're educated about what that means. So you'll be receiving that educational information from our staff as well. But you'll be hearing about this. Again, press release went out today. Hopefully you were notified, and we're sharing this with you today. But it is an unprecedented opportunity for our schools. I hope you understand the impact, and I hope you feel the financial benefit of this to our schools, the athlete health and wellness aspect, but just understanding what an incredible opportunity this is, and from the Denver Broncos Foundation and how much they continue to support high school athletics, high school activities, and we are really excited about this announcement. So more information to come. The helmets will be shared, and they're going to be divided up based on your classification. So the number, we looked at average roster sizes, so 6-man football through 5A. We looked at the roster sizes. You'll be getting those helmets based on your classification, and it will be over a 4-year period. So you'll receive 25% of the helmets each year for the next 4 years. So again, really excited. It does also include subscriptions to the Insight Analytics program, helmets, tools, and kits, as well as the fitting, all that. Riddell has been intimately involved intimately involved with this process. So thanks to Riddell as well. So super excited to share that with you this morning. Obviously a difference maker and impact to our school community. Hopefully you find that this will also benefit you and your programs, and we look forward to sharing more information. So thank you.
That's outstanding. That is outstanding. Thank you. I think that's enough new business for today. That's a big one. Do we have any other new business anybody wants to bring up from the floor? All right, kind of in closing, just want to wish everybody well over the next few months. I know here in the next couple weeks we have league, regional, state wrestling and swimming coming up, and then shortly after our alpine skiing and boys and girls basketball state championships. So busy month and a half immediately ahead of us. Thank you all for everything that you do. Like I tried to say in my opening remarks, it takes everybody. It takes everybody coming together to make this stuff happen. Thank you for your dedication to our schools. Thank you for our dedication to our programs. Thank you for our dedication to our kids. We can't make this happen without you. And I know those days where you feel like you've been working a 14-hour day and you can't sleep at night, and sometimes it feels like the most thankless job in the world. you are making a difference. Regardless what your role is, everybody in this room, you're making a difference with kids, and that's all that really matters. So thank you all. Those of you that are coming back for the CHSAA Hall of Fame tonight, we look forward to seeing you then. We are going to ask that everybody kind of move out here in somewhat timely fashion because we need to get the room turned around and the tables rearranged for the Hall of Fame dinner tonight. But thank you all for everything. We stand adjourned. Want everybody to notice we got out of here before noon today. I can't promise the same thing in April.
Well, we never released anything. Find out.